What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Hope you're doing well today. This is going to be my full definitive setup for everything for 2025 Supercross. I'm going to give you my leaning settings, how I've got my controls set up on my controller. I'm going to give you the suspension that I'm using for Supercross as well. I'm going to show you my Reshade settings, my Maxhud settings, absolutely everything you can think of to be as lens as possible. And before we get into all of that, the first thing that I want to say is the gear and bike that you see on screen right now, also the gear and bike that you'll be seeing in the background footage of this. These are private skins and a private bike. This is a Triumph Modelswap, which goes onto the KTM 450. I will link in the description of this video a hell of a lot of links, but the first one that you will see is a link to free FXR gear through MXB mods, and also a link to a free Triumph Modelswap created by Dashpack, so you can look as similar to this as possible without getting the real thing. For all of you passionate gamers, you can now get 20% off all G Fuel products worldwide by using code LINS at checkout. And for any of you motorheads looking for some new drip or apparel, use code MXPR_LINS15 FXRracing.eu to get 15% off. All links and codes are in the description down below. Enjoy the video and drop a cheeky little like and subscribe. This should all be timestamped as well, so you can see what order you want to skip to if you're looking for anything in particular. But first off, we're going to go through all of my what I can call controller and control settings. So this is all the buttons I use, and then all of the, I guess, steering settings I use as well. So start us off, we're going to lean left and right with the left analog stick. I've got the controller overlay at the bottom left of your screen as well. Just left stick, left and right to turn the bike. For the throttle, I've got my right trigger. For the brake, I've got left trigger, and I run combined brakes, as you can see down here. So it does both my back brake and my front brake at the same time. My rear brake is set to my L1, so if I ever want to just lock up the back brake, I can do so that way. My clutch is set to my square button right here, clutch. I also have, which I will link below, a setup on. So my clutch and my downshift are on the same button. Neon has created a really helpful video if you want to see how to do that to get Quickshift working. And I will link that in the description of this video as well if you're curious about that. Rider front and back lean on the right stick, up and down. Rider left and right lean, left and right on the right stick, very straightforward. Rider lean tracking I have disabled so that I can see all of my rider's movements. My direct lean is set to 80, which is slightly on the higher end, but it just means all of the inputs I put in on my left stick here is about 80% accurate. There's a little bit of, I guess, a delay on it. 100% would be any micro movement that you put into the stick would go straight through the bars. 0%, it would be like, I don't know, you're stuck in mud. The bike would feel like it wouldn't want to turn at all. Combined brakes, like I said, my minimum and maximum brakes, they're just my comfy points. You can mess around with this. You can max your brakes out loads, but they'll be really, really sensitive. That's just kind of what I rock at the moment. Over to the advanced settings, which I missed on my last setup video. They got a few drop-down tabs here. So my lean, 2% dead zone. I like having full control. The only reason that I have a dead zone at all is because I have a tiny bit of stick drift. As you can see, that little yellow bar at the bottom here that's moving around. It's just a tiny little bit to the left. So I have some dead zone on there to cancel that out. Linearity is 120, which means that the input at the start of the input on the controller is less sensitive, and then it gets more sensitive towards the end. I think if you put it down to 0, for example, it makes it really sensitive at the beginning and then not sensitive at all at the end. I have smoothing off, press and release 0, 0. Don't touch this stuff at all. My gain is set to 94. Again, if you want the bike to tip over quicker, increase this. If you think it's tipping over too quickly, decrease this. Very simple. Force feedback, never touched it. My throttle settings, I have a 0% dead zone. I like being fully in control of my throttle. Exactly what I put through my finger is what goes into the game. Linearity is just set to 100. Smoothing on, which helps with when you're using a controller, just to smooth the input out and help with your throttle control. Press is 30%, release is 10%, gain is 104.1%. My brakes, 0 dead zone, 100% linearity, smoothing on, 30 press, 10 release, 98.6 gain. My clutch, I believe, is fully default, 0 dead zone, 100% linearity, no smoothing, 0 press, 0 release, 100% gain. My rider forward and back lean, so on the right stick, 10% dead zone, 100% linearity, smoothing, pressed on, so we've got some smooth movements rather than any jerky movements, 80% press, 80% release, 100% gain, and that will be the same for my left-right as well, them two copy each other. Over to input 2 if you want this. I change up with triangle on my controller. I change down with square. Again, this square and clutch is set to the same button, so I can downshift and hold the clutch at the same time. Again, the link to get that all set up is in the description if you wish to do so. My start is just on my keyboard. I run auto clutch, I think it is, so my bike never stalls anyway, which I'll show you later on, so I don't need this on a controller. To push my bike forwards and backwards, I just have it on my D-pad, up and down. To sit, I click down my right stick, and I have this set to direct. What direct means is, anytime my right stick is clicked in, I will be sat down. Anytime it is not clicked in, I will be stood up. If you want it so you only have to press the button once and it stays sat down, and then you just press it once again to make it stand up, you would untick this box. Ride a dab on this game, it doesn't do anything to my knowledge. It's just an animation. It doesn't help your riding anyway. So again, I don't use this. I have this set to keyboard. To reset to the track, I just have it on my share button on my PS4 controller. And to set a track marker, I have it to my pause button, or the options button, you would call it, on my PS4 controller. To change view, I've got that on my keyboard just to save buttons on my controller to be available. To look back, I have my touchpad, to look behind me. Heading, what that means is to look left and right, so side to side, which I have on my D-pad to look left and to look right. And my tear off is clicking down my left stick. And the only other ones I have on here is to raise my arm, so to maybe say sorry to someone if I hit them, or say thank you if a lapper moves out of the way, is my R1 button. And then finally, you got to get a little bit steezy, I've got a trick button in there as well. The input free tab, unless you plan on making edits or any sort, you don't really need to mess with. This is all just to do with the in-game camera. So there is no right or wrong way of setting this up at all. This is all just going into replay mode and messing about, so you adjust this as you wish to do so. In my graphics, I try to max things out as best as I can within reason. I play on in 2K, 144Hz monitor. I stream in 2K as well, so this is why I can't max everything out, or I would start getting bad FPS. The game isn't optimized the best. But I put all of these on high. The reason being, I think it's models over here you want on high. If you don't have this on high, when somebody joins a lobby, your game will freeze for a little bit. So max this one out if you can. Got all my shades on everything. I turn 3D grass off, and I keep my anti-aliasing quite low because these are two big factors for FPS as well. They'll help quite a lot. Over to the miscellaneous, all personal preference to do with your audio. Bandwidth is an important one. So if you have this set to very low, people will disappear on your screen only a couple feet away from you. If you have this set to very high, you can see everybody all the way across the track. So if you're on particularly busy lobbies, if you're in maybe a 40-man server and you have it set to very high, you might find that it affects your frames because it's got everybody's bikes loaded in at all times. If you set it down a little bit more to medium, maybe it'll get better, low, better, very low, the best. But I have it on high, so if somebody crashes a little distance away from me, I can see them and they're not suddenly popping up on my screen at the last second. I have set it to UK units because I am from the UK and have the correct date format, day, month, year, not month, day, year. Sorry to all of you American viewers. I actually love you, really. And I have my chat turned off because I hate getting distracted by the chat messages in game all the time. Over to the simulation page, my first person field of view settings. I play in dynamic camera, so that is the second first person camera. My field of view is 115. My tilt is 0, so my head doesn't move side to side into the corners. And my pitch is 31, and that affects how kind of far up or down your rider is looking. I've never messed with any of this free look stuff. I just leave it as it is. I don't like corner anticipation. I have this all turned off. I have the show rider stand on. Only reason for that is because it helps the stream a lot of the time. When I'm streaming, they can see when I'm standing up or sitting down. If you want third person view settings, I quite like this. Some people like it, some people hate it. You can see them right here. I mean, off, on, 20, 70, 0. And then in riding aids, I have automatic clutch on, which basically just means when you come to a stop, you haven't got to pull the clutch in. It will do it for you and the bike won't stall. I have brake help on because I originally played MX Simulator before I played MX Bikes, and I had anti-lock brakes on that game. I'm quite heavy-handed on the left trigger, so I do that. It actually hinders me sometimes because I can't brake as hard as other people into corners, but it does just stop a lot of your front and back brakes locking up to cause any slide outs at all. And then automatic tyre change. So this means when you go back to the pits and you then go to the track again, it will refresh your tyres for you, so you haven't got any tyre wear at all. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend having automatic sit. I wouldn't recommend having traction help. I wouldn't recommend having lean help. They will just hinder you and slow you down in a way. Coming over to the garage, this is probably what everybody wants to see. This is the Supercross setup that I've been using for about the last 3 weeks or so, and it's what I feel comfortable on. It's what I'm going to use for Supercross. and Splash has been nice enough to let me show this to you guys as well. I am just going to pre-warn you, this is an aggressive setup. It works best the faster you go. As you can imagine, with an aggressive Supercross setup, it's got quite high rebound, quite high compression to help you seat bounce things and blitz whoops really, really quickly. If you are slower at the game, this setup won't really work for you great. However, I do have a Discord link to Splash's suspension, performance works, all that good stuff, Discord, down below in the description of this video. He has links, or he has free setups in there if people want to try them on a variety of bikes. You can also order a personalized setup from him as well if you want something more tailored to you and your likings. So it's definitely worth checking that out. Just wanted to mention that before I show this all off to you. I'm going to compare to default. For a normal Supercross race, which is 20 minutes plus a lap for 450s, I run 5.5 litres. For qualifying, I will run 2 litres. The reason you take some fuel out is because less fuel, lighter bike, couple attempts a lap quicker is the grand scheme of things. But I always run 5.5 for the race because that's what gets me through. I run 80 front. It's the only option we have these days on these current OEM bikes. That could change because we have new bikes coming out very, very soon. My rear tyre, I prefer 120. A lot of the top guys run 110. The difference between these essentially is 110 is faster in a straight line. 120 has a little bit more grip in the corners, but will slow you down slightly because it's essentially a fatter tyre. It's got a bit more resistance to it, so it doesn't roll quite as easy. But personal preference, I much prefer the 110. These tyre pressures are stock. I know they're odd from each other, but that is just how the stock tyre pressures come. That is exactly how I run them. If this says bar for you instead of PSI, again, just leave it as stock. I don't change any of my brakes or anything like that, make them bigger size, etc. They all stay stock as they are. Over to the suspension. Feel free to pause the video, take a screenshot, whatever you want. There's no point me going through and reading like bit by bit what it is. This is just what I run. I'm not a suspension guru. If I was, I would make my own setups. But again, thank you very much, Splash, for doing this for me. My gearing is stock 1351. If I go to the others tab, my mapping, I like putting on aggressive. And this is, again, my geometry stuff that affects, I guess, the wheelbase of the bike and how it turns, things like that. So there you go. There is a suspension on there. Feel free to give that a go. And again, if you don't like it, which a lot of people won't, depending on your skill level, go and check out the Discord link in the description and go try some other free setups. And then if you don't like those, feel free to buy one and get a custom one yourself. If you do use my first person settings that I showed you earlier on, and you think it looks just a little bit different still to what Lindsay's running, if when you go to the track, on your keyboard, you press the Shift and C buttons combined, you'll see at the bottom of my screen, it says Seat H. Now, if you use the arrow keys on your keyboard, you can go up and down. I go all the way down, which moves my rider all the way to the back of the bike. If you then press Shift and C again, it will say Seat V, and you go up and down. It raises the rider's height and lowers it. So I go all the way down and I go all the way back on the rider settings there, and that is how you get my full first-person settings. Maxhud. Let's get Maxhud up on the screen and show you everything that I look at during the course of the race. So there will be a link to download Maxhud in the description of this video. On that link, you will also find in the comments of it a link to how to install it properly, because a lot of people trip up on the installation phase. Once you do get it all installed, the only way that you can pop it up on the screen is you come into game, you come onto the track, and you press the caps lock button on your keyboard, and that will give you this menu. Now, this is all fully customizable. Like, there's so many different things in here that you can turn on or off and mess around to your heart's desire. I have a good amount of information, but I don't want it to be too cluttered as well, because you have to remember people have to watch the stream. So I have the map on the right-hand side, and to move any of these things around, you hover over it, you hold right-click on your mouse, and then you can move it around, so you can move it wherever you want it to go. So I have my map on the right-hand side here, and again, if you click on map, you can change the sizing of it, the range, so it shows how far away, the width of the black lines, a little border around the outside in white, fully customizable. I like seeing the standings over to the left here, so I know what position I'm in, I know how far away I am from the lead, etc. I like seeing the timing as well, which is this at the very, very top. So this gives you splits, so there's 3 sectors on each track. It shows you sector 1, sector 2, sector 3 times, and then your total lap time as well. When you've already done a lap, it would also show you basically your delta, which is how far or behind your best lap you are. And then I also have speed at the bottom right here as well. You can't see it very well because it's hidden behind the black arm of my rider, but this just shows you how fast you're going and what gear you're in. and you can change this speed from miles an hour to kilometers an hour, change the size of it, all that good stuff. So I've got that down there as well. And then this little rider here was in the settings earlier, where I said it shows the rider standing. The controller overlay that you see on screen as well, down on the bottom left here, this is not MX Bikes. This is to do with OBS, the recording software that I use. So you won't be able to get that in-game. Essentially, that is completely different. I just put that on the screen for your viewing pleasure as such. And then finally, I also have some Reshade settings right here. Again, there will be a link in description to go and install Reshade in the first place, because it is a program that you have to install on your PC. I will then also send you a link to the MX Bike shop track by Hurren called Hurren Compound, which is where I got this from. Actually, it says Hurren MX up here. This is his Reshade that I use all the time. I don't mess around with this too much. Like, Reshade's one of them things you can press a whole bunch of different settings and mess around with how the game looks overall, but I just usually run tried and tested things, so I don't mess around with it too much. But there's a whole bunch of settings in here to choose from. You can get as crazy as running Technicolor, so this looks like I'm playing in the 1990s or whatever. You can run some really over-the-top stuff, like I have another preset in here as well, which makes it look super, I guess, like onboard 3D-ish looking. But for races, just general playing, I stick to this Hurren's MX Reshade. So that'll be down in the description. So that should be absolutely everything, I think. I'm hoping I haven't missed anything. Watch me render this out and upload it, and then there's just one major thing that I've forgotten. But that's all of my buttons. That's all of the settings that I use in terms of like the leaning settings and brakes and throttle and like rider forwards and backwards, all that good stuff. You've got the suspension that I'm using at the moment as well, that Splash created. What else we got? You got my Reshade settings and where to get them. You've got my Maxhud all set up and where you go and download Maxhud from as well. So I think you're good to go. That is absolutely everything that I'm running for 2025. And some of this might become outdated in a short period of time. Mostly, maybe from a bike standpoint, I might not be using the KTM in the near future, because there's a massive bike pack upgrade that's going to come out, so things might change, but I doubt it. The KTM's been very OP for a while now. I think it will stay the same way moving forwards, so we shall see. Hopefully you have found this useful. I know a few people have been asking for an updated settings video, so that is what we're rocking with for 2025 Supercross, and I feel comfortable with it, so I don't see myself changing it anytime soon. So hope you enjoyed. Please drop a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. All of that good YouTube stuff, help out with the algorithm, and big W's all around. Have a lovely rest of the day, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
Lynn's in the zone, never backing down. Riding MX Bikes, he's the talk of the town. 2022 champ with a YouTube crown. His game is tight, no signs of slowing down. Late nights, bright lights, he's chasing that fame in the digital arena. Writing his name, she's a 10 out of 10. Supporting his lane, hairline might receive, but his passion's the same.